Indiana Jones, It's a podcast about Indiana Jones. Every movie, 1 minute at a time. The Indiana Jones Minute.
Welcome back to the Indiana Jones Minute. This is the podcast where we explore Indiana Jones and Dr. Fantasy's magic caboose 1 minute at a time. I'm Pete Mummert.
I'm Tom Taylor.
I'm Joe Christopher Marcus Porter.
And we're joined today once again by Eric Zala. You will remember him as the kid who played Belloc when he made that amazing shot-for-shot remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark when he was a kid. And he also joined us last season for Pat Roach's crushing cardiac arrest punch. Welcome back, Eric.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Woo!
Yeah, thanks for being on. It's always fun to talk to you.
For coming on, yeah.
And we're talking today about minute 10, which begins with Roscoe demanding the so-called Cross of Coronado from Indy, and it ends with Indy running wild in the streets.
All right, look, I have a healthy low blood pressure.
Okay.
But I am very, very angry right now. And they must have switched the baskets Marion angry. Like, I don't want to get into this. Like, I know we're supposed to go through the minute chronologically, and in the first second we this, and the second and second 8. No. I want to know right now. I need to know right now a clear and reasonable explanation of how young Indiana Jones escapes from this moving train. And I don't want to hear all this, this movie is a fun father-son romp. That doesn't count. I don't want to hear that we're all having fun.
Jerry?
Yes.
This is just more bullet points. This is like when he tells Marcus that he doesn't believe in magical out of superstitious hocus pocus. This is when he realizes that magic is really just a bunch of gags and like trick chests and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then from that, after he gets out of there, and I agree, I don't really know, either must be a false floor or something. It's magic. I don't understand. But then he learns how to survive underneath a fast-moving vehicle, which he then does in Raiders. So he's earning all his points and all his boost credits that he's going to use in the video game of life. And it totally holds water.
So wait a minute. Am I to believe though that there's a secret trap door that's diagonal under the train, because the magic box is diagonally placed, and so when they store the magic box, they happen to store it over a diagonal trap door on the caboose.
So when young Indy hops down. And we see the sign, Dr. Fantasy's Magic Caboose, right? Okay,
yeah.
So that tells me that when this traveling circus comes to each town, they incorporate the caboose. It's a, you're supposed to lead people through there. This would lend itself well to, tickets, and, come in one exit and exit out the back. And so, yeah, if that's so, then the false floor makes a bit more sense. Maybe.
I buy that.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And we also don't know Indy's in the box when you see it shaking. And I also think Indy has the assistance of Dr. Fantasy himself going on here, because we've gotten way, way, way ahead of ourselves. But at the very end of the minute, when Fedora walks out the back door of the caboose, you see a man sitting who I surmise is Dr. Fantasy. You see his reflection in the mirror sitting in the back of the caboose. So I think he helped Indy.
Wait, are you dead serious?
Yeah.
There's a dude sitting there?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
I never saw that.
Tell me.
I'm scared to
tell me
death.
the second. Yeah. Me
Oh
too.
my gosh, there is a guy there. Holy smokes. Oh, I just got chills.
Oh my gosh. I'm learning things I never knew.
Oh, it's super weird.
It's like second 44, 45.
It's like in the reflection of the glass of the door that he opens or something.
Yeah.
Oh, it's weird.
Yeah, so I think that's Dr. Fantasy helping Indy out.
Yeah, and he's tossing the golden coin that Indy
is
just
crazy.
earned from.
I actually, here's my theory. I think it's a Yahweh crate.
Oh, God.
And that's all. Like, I think if anything, it's Yahweh helping Indy out. And I'm starting to think that we talked about this in Temple of Doom a little bit. I think Yahweh and Shiva and I don't know who else, I guess the Christian God, they all just kind of kick Indy around here and there, and they kind of use him for, they kind of alley-oop him here and there. That's the only thing I came up with.
It's magic, Jerry.
It's a magic caboose.
It's a magic caboose that's a Yahweh caboose.
Do you know how we know that it's a magic caboose, by the way? Because Indy sees the word magic and he goes, magic? Which, if you want to be angry about something in this minute, that's it right there.
Yeah. Well, that's our
Thanks,
official, our first official Johnny says what he sees.
Exactly.
But it's a nice call out to producer Frank Marshall.
That's right.
His nickname was Dr. Fantasy because he always would perform a magic trick at the end of every production. And there's some cool crossovers, like our friends Neil and George over at the Mogwai Minute. In Gremlins, if you look in downtown Kingston Falls, there's a Dr. Fantasy's comic book shop. And then
awesome.
At the end of Poltergeist, there's a sign on the Holiday Inn that says "Welcome, Dr. Fantasy."
Really?
That's cool.
So Frank Marshall often gets this little kind of nod to his magician prowess.
That's awesome.
When I saw the Dr. Fantasy's magic caboose, look, I ain't thinking PG-13.
Yeah, it was probably born out of the Raiders rap party got a little rowdy, maybe.
Right.
Exactly.
Behind the green door of the magic caboose.
But we skipped over at the beginning of the minute.
That's all right. That's all right.
The magic really
Man, you guys hate
off,
this
Tom.
movie.
I'm kidding. The snake comes out of him. What?
I'm flailing here. I feel like... Wow. Anyway, yeah, so Roscoe tries to grab Indy, and a snake slithers out of Indy's sleeve and slithers up Roscoe's arm. And he goes, a snake. And then he just takes off running. And I'm assuming he runs all the way to reformatory school.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
And Roscoe grew up to be Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I'll tell you, I think Roscoe has a lot of obstacles in his way in his life. And it's exactly, the problem with Roscoe is he's still not appropriately reading the social climate here, because it's like we're all set up to discuss whether or not the crucifix of Coronado belongs to Coronado, Coronado's family, or in a museum. But no, Roscoe has to interrupt with his monkey-knuckled grabbing, and he ruined the whole scene. It's like it's set up between a grave robber and a young budding archaeologist to turn grave robber, and we're about to have this like amazing debate about the crucifix of Coronado belongs to whom, and then Roscoe just ruins the whole thing. And I think, look, we all have Roscoes in our lives. They're just monkey knuckle. I'm the Roscoe in my life. But you mentioned the snake here, Pete, coming out of Indy's sleeve, and again, I think that might be Yahweh intervention rumpus.
No. They dropped this from the series, but it's the snake power he actually gained when he got scared by the snake and fell into the pit. He can produce snakes. He just never does it anymore.
I mean, once again, a snake comes out of his sleeve, and that's how he gets away.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Jerry.
Okay, well, thank you for clarifying that.
So why does so they all take off? Their first reaction, other than Roscoe, is that they're all going to chase Indy into Dr. Fantasy's magic caboose, and Fedora holds them all back, and he says, "Make sure he doesn't double back." But why do you think he holds them all back? Do you think he wants the moment alone with Indy, or do you think he's worried that they're going to rough him up a little bit, or do you think he just wants to make sure the job gets done right, so he's going to do it himself?
I think the latter it would be my vote. Fedora, he's got that cool sort of semblance that Indy later learns to emulate. So I think he's Mr. in charge. I think he's asserting his authority. That's my vote.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's legitimately tactical. Like, this is like a this train is a line. You know, if he gets past me, it's because he's coming back this way or something. He's not going to go through like a magic chest and end up fine on the ground and running down the track. So stay back here in case he comes back.
Wonder if the guys gave him a hard time about that. Oh, nice job. You know, you took him out.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a very short line between where you're going, Jerry, and midichlorians.
Oof. Yeah, you know.
Like you want every single part of this explained. Yeah, I need to know exactly where the delineation of the bottom of the box so we can calculate how he gets out of it. I mean, that's how you get straight to midichlorians.
Well, look. It's some of this is. I mean, because I don't like lazy filmmaking, and so the guy gets in a magic box. Indy gets in a magic box, and poof, he's off the train.
You're going to be stunned by what I'm about to say, but I actually accept this. I actually think this is kind of funny that he uses what's obviously a gag, magic box. It's a gag. It's not magic. It's a gag. And he uses it to successfully apparate himself off of the train and run to safety. I think it's actually kind of funny.
Well, look, if all y'all so smart, why doesn't Fedora Man get into the magic box then and whisk himself off the train?
He could get hurt.
Well, it's not magic. I mean, these carnies were traveling the country and they had these crazy contraptions because they would fool people and it would be like a funny thing.
I have no problem at all with escaping via a magic box. I have no problem with carnies having crazy fun contraptions. I don't even have a problem with a father-son romp. Just depict it a little bit better. Just show it, like have the magic box be in front of the caboose door.
That's a little easy.
And so he goes into the magic box and he jumps by, and he locks it or something.
I think I just take issue with this, that this is lazy filmmaking. I think this is great filmmaking. I think it's funny, it's clever, it's something that we weren't expecting.
It is. I actually, you know what? I love the whole train sequence. I think it's great that he rides up and he happens to get on a circus train, and now we're going to have to go through all these circus train obstacles one at a time. I like the whole thing. I just want a plausible escape. That's all. Just plausible. Like when Satipo drops the whip, Indy has to jump and he leaps across the chasm and there's a vine and he grabs the vine and I'm all good with that. That's
so you
fine.
want like a riding on the top of a U-boat escape.
Yeah.
Touche.
Sure. But even that though, I'm like, well, maybe it stayed above water. That's fine. That hurt. That hurt. You sunk my hopes, Pete. Well, you do mention. Listen, I'm getting all verklempt here. Let me just go back and we'll change the subject. You mentioned, Pete. Fedora says, "Hold it. Make sure he doesn't double back." And I think that's a very symbolic and foreshadowing line, because Indy's gonna come this way. Like, make sure he doesn't double back. And you're like, yeah, that's right. Indy's gonna come back that way and be Fedora Man and a grave robber and the whole thing. Indy does double back.
So, okay.
In a metaphorical sense.
Yes, Eric. Thank you. Yes, in a metaphorical sense. I mean, it's like freshman English class. Like a metaphorical. No, he doesn't really double back. I just mean he's gonna come back that way. He's gonna he's gonna come back that way and become Fedora Man. It's just one more line or one more one more thing that he's going to become that character or be influenced by him.
Yeah, I like that.
I feel it.
God almighty. You guys give me a hard time on a magic box, but you can't.
No, I'm just, the only reason I hesitate is because I don't think any of us is a big fan of the actual character of the Fedora guy. And so when we talk about, I know what you're saying, and you're probably right, but like when we talk about like, oh, Indy's going to become that guy, I'm like, no, he's not. He's going to be cool Harrison Ford, and he's going to be awesome. What are you talking about?
Of course.
Well, I was more confused because I thought Indy was running on a straight line to becoming Fedora. So I thought if he were to double back, he would double back to become wholesome Indy.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I was a little confused with that.
And why would Fedora not want him to double back and become like him? Yeah, Jerry, you're full of it. This doesn't make any sense. You're like a rickety old magic crate.
Can we get a lazy bell here?
Yeah. Let me see if I can get out of this. He's my magic crate.
Notice, though, our formerly smooth and unflustered Fedora man cusses not once but twice in this shot. Son of a.
Yeah.
When the bit is revealed,
Salty.
and then we bust the back door open. Damn. So and that's as salty as Last Crusade gets. Aside from the whole sleeping with fathers.
Yeah. Well, there's that whole thing. Yeah.
Menage a bond.
Indy even appropriated that, like that son of a Indy ends up using in the Well of the Souls later.
That's true.
That's true.
Well, I feel like,
Bullet point.
Tommy, you know this. I mean, my father never swears.
Right.
My father never swears. If my father says "damn" or "damn it," it's like the world stops.
Yeah,
exactly.
What's happening?
I think that's great that there's not a lot of cursing in Last Crusade.
Yeah, I bet Sean Connery as Indy's dad. I don't see him cursing too much.
No.
Right.
So,
or he does it in Greek, so you don't know.
Could you guys imagine Man in the Temple of Doom?
Easily.
Like if we think about like what we know, like in what we know,
Kali Ma's dead and all of his children.
It's a little bit of his own. Like he's a grave robber. He's he knows where Cross Coronado might be buried. He has enough to hire the locals to help him out. That sort of thing.
But see, I think Fedora's kind of farm team. Like he's maybe AA at best.
Yeah.
Like he's kind of the local. He's the guy that loots local graves, but he hasn't worked his way up to the majors and got after the big fish yet.
Oh, but you know what though? Think of Shorty sincerely asking Indiana Jones, like, "Hey, what are we gonna do?" That kid says that there's a bunch of kids at that palace, and Indy responds with, "Fortune and glory, you got something on your chin." Like, wouldn't that be much more palatable coming from this guy? You'd almost get it. Like, it would almost make sense as a scene.
That's right. He's emulating Fedora.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a WWFD bracelet on right now.
Right.
You know what? This guy, I feel like saying this guy has like a Tootsie Roll in his pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like that's his idea of a good time. Just hands out Tootsie Rolls.
Saving this for later.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to have it Thursday. I'm going to eat this Saturday night. I'm with you, Tommy. I don't like this guy at all, and he's not what Indy becomes. And I mean, I'm only going on what they give us.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe in my head canon that this is where Indiana Jones, he gets all his from this schlock.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's Fedora's style without substance.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an empty hat.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
I mean, he's fashion with no substance.
Gosh, you know what it reminds me of all of a sudden? It reminds me of the first Terminator, where naked Arnold Schwarzenegger steals the kind of cool 80s jacket from these dumb, nothing punks, and he makes it cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. And, you got to bear in mind, Indy's young, too, and he's impressionable. He doesn't always choose the best role models.
That's true.
Yeah. Well, speaking of role models, why do you think... so Fedora watches him running from the back of the train, and he kind of starts to smile. And why do you think he's smiling? Is he admiring Indy's moxie, or does he see himself in the kid, or does he see who he wants to be? Or do you think he just knows they're going to catch him?
I think he's thinking, boy, I want to be a grave robber.
I was just hired to do this, but I should do this on my own volition.
Because he looks on he looks on like I have his heart.
I was thinking about Saturday and that Tootsie Roll. Sweet.
Well, I think he's one of those guys. He's like an A&R guy, but for archaeologists.
Yeah.
He recognizes the talent. Then in young Indian, he's like, man, look at him go.
Right.
You know what I mean? All this belongs in a museum. He's got a snake up his sleeve. Literally a trick up his sleeve. It's like he recognizes talent, and he's like, wait till I get back to University of Grave Robbing and tell them, boy, do I have a graduate assistant for you guys.
Yeah.
And where is Fedora Man now? You never see, him in the fan conventions or whatnot, but somewhere out there's an aging Fedora
Oh,
Man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
hope he's not
interesting that they chose an actor that, I mean, that's not really known, right? I mean, he's like, we can all agree this guy is sort of faceless.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, negative milquetoast, mamby-pamby, but he's also just sort of, he's not a known actor,
Right.
That's true. I think they didn't want to take, even though he's the adult and he's wearing the cooler gear, they didn't want River overshadowed, probably.
Yeah.
So I think they went the milquetoast thing, to offset, the cool gear that he's wearing, and he's got the cool sort of countenance in terms of voice, but yeah, there's something missing. It's not a complete package yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very light.
Like an indie prototype.
But he's got that sort of that grin is vaguely. I will give him this. It's reminiscent of Harrison Ford grin, isn't it?
A little bit.
Yeah, I think I'm not a huge fan of him, but I think he grows on me a little bit. And I think this part at the end where he's watching Indy run from the train, I think right there he kind of grows into himself, and I kind of like it.
Yeah. I think part of why I want to not like him more than I would even naturally is as I'm guarding against the people who say, oh, that's probably Abner. That's probably Abner Ravenwood. Like in some version of the story that's Abner. I'm like, no, it is not Abner Ravenwood. Stop. This guy's just some doof. Forget it.
In the original script, it was going to be Abner Ravenwood.
I don't like that, Pete. Stop saying that. I have nightmares.
Yeah, Pete will do that to you.
He totally does.
Kind of sneaks up behind you with some facts.
Cudgel you with the truth.
Yeah, exactly. Cold cocks you with some facts. It's awful. Well, in the very, very end, like right when Indy's running down the railroad tracks, you see some cars, right? Like kind of going in the background a little bit. Is that how they discover where Indy lives? Like, do the cars?
Oh.
Like, is that the Belloc-looking guy in the white suit with the red carnation? Is that him, and he sees Indy running away, and so they follow him home and say, well, that's where he lives?
Yeah, that was my assumption, but I don't know.
Oh, really? Well, doesn't Eaton with the bugle, doesn't he had gotten the sheriff, and I always assumed they just went to the sheriff, and the sheriff brought them over here.
Yeah, they might have just gone straight to the sheriff, and then some punk stole our.
Oh, did he?
cross.
I mean, did Eaton turn like that just for like 30 pieces of donuts or whatever it is? He went all Judas on him like that?
No, Indy told him to get the sheriff.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So the sheriff was in the wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, Baby Porkins did exactly what Indy asked him to.
Yeah.
And yet he's sort of a grating character.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, at the very end here, we get just a glimpse of Indy running towards his house, and you see that the train tracks in the background. And Eric, you sent us an amazing picture a little while ago.
Yeah. Bit of a funny true story on this, looking at the shot of young Indy running across the railroad tracks, and we whip pan. It'll start the next minute, him going home. I entirely by accident stumbled upon this location during our tour for the Raiders documentary last summer. Driving through Colorado, we drive past this billboard, Indiana Jones Bed and Breakfast. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I look up the website on my phone, and it's Indy's childhood home with the Jones mailbox out front, and that that same railroad tracks that we see ending this minute. And I call up the owner and say, hey, I'd love to swing by, and it's right in our path. It's directly, it's like 20 minutes ahead. So I can't believe it. I'm not going to pass this up. So I actually, once we got there, and they actually do rent it out. You can stay overnight in Indy's childhood home. IndianaJonesBedandBreakfast.com, I believe, is the literal website.
Awesome.
If you want to check it out. They're real nice, and I photographed. I had to recreate this shot, this last ending image of the minute, with my my son Quinn, of the same age, running across the railroad tracks. And I'd actually never shared this story on Facebook or anything. So Indiana Jones Minute exclusive, true fun story.
Wow.
Awesome.
If you spend the night there, do you wake up in the morning like knowing what you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, you got a scar on your chin. You're afraid of snakes.
Man,
Yeah.
I tell you what, I wanted to stay there. If I didn't have a screening the following night in a neighboring town, I would have. But they have the actual green paint, that you see in the following scene with Bugle Boy, bursts in. It's exactly as it was. And if you turn to the left, yep, there's that window through which I saw in my mind's eye, Panama Hat and the car outside and him and Roscoe
awesome.
handing him the cross, and it's just this.
Wow.
Yeah, it was.
That's
it was
awesome.
amazing.
I like there's a picture of you like in the Raiders bus.
Yes.
Just like Raiders in front of that house.
Yeah.
Too
Hey,
perfect.
I'm sorry, real quick. What city?
Yeah.
What city was that in?
This was in Colorado. The name, it's a small little burg. The name escapes me, but if you go to Indiana Jones Bed and Breakfast, it'll list it. Oh, and if that weren't enough, when we were leaving town on the way out, we get stopped at railroad tracks, and what's crossing directly in front of us but a vintage locomotive, circa 1930s.
nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I don't know if it's the same one, but that town really needs to make this an Indiana Jones mecca, I think.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right. Anybody have anything else about minute 10?
Oh, wait. Why, yes, there is something else about minute number 10.
What?
Oh, hey.
Yes, hey, this just in from Professor Christy Porter. So after a snake just saved Indy's life, is he now ophidiophilic?
Yeah. He doesn't seem to have any
Wow.
reaction to that snake. And you'd think
Yeah.
he'd be like,
Huh.
oh, now that I have the power of the snake, I can use it to my own advantage. I don't have to be afraid of it.
Well, I wonder, does this whole snake thing go back and forth? Now the snake just saved his life, and so he's ophidiophilic. But then later, next week, he's going to have a negative encounter with the snake again. He'll become ophidophobic.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
He kind of just pinballs between the two.
It's also weird about the snake thing. Like all the other, if you saw this movie first, and I think a lot of people did, depending on how old they were and stuff, the snake thing never ever comes back in this movie. So it's like everything else. He uses a whip. Oh, he's got a scar on his chin. All this stuff. But the snake thing only makes sense if you've seen the other movies. That's the only time there's any kind of resonance.
That's true.
That is
That's
true.
true.
Yeah.
They're meant to be watched in order.
I
Yeah.
agree completely.
God, what would your life be like if you saw this first?
A lot of people did.
Yeah.
That's a scary thought.
Are they doing okay? Yeah, are they all right?
Some of them are living perfectly normal, happy lives.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
I have a feeling some of them may be vocal about your opinions as to the movie, too, Jared.
Yeah, you're probably hearing about them right now.
Yeah.
Your mailbox is filling up.
Tomatoes thrown at me on Facebook.
And I would like to say, if you are interested in finding more Indiana Jones, I cannot recommend highly enough the documentary about Eric and his friends making the shot-for-shot remake of Raiders called Raiders, the Story of the Greatest Fan Film Ever Made. And if you can find it, or if you can, even better, if you can find the original shot-for-shot remake itself, unbelievable. And how's that? Are you guys still touring with that, Eric? Or are you guys?
Thanks for that. We did a 65 city tour, but at over 18,000 miles, and finally capped it off with a fan Comic-Con themed cruise.
Nice.
But happy to say it's real easy to find the doc these days. It is actually streaming currently on Netflix. Just search the word Raiders and it'll pop right up.
Awesome.
Yeah, definitely.
That's
If you haven't
terrific.
seen it yet, definitely check it out. It's incredible. And the
it
story
is.
and the
It's
ties
really
into
fun.
Raiders, it's all amazing.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, definitely. And we would also like to ask all of you for a little bit of help. If you would like to help support the show, we have something called Patreon, where you can go and you can become just like a Medici. If you want to feel like a medieval patron of the arts, you can go to patreon.com/Indiana Jones Minute, and you can check out our show there. We do a special weekend show where we talk about lots of other movies. So far, we've done Jaws, Close Encounters, some Indiana Jones comic books, E.T. You also get stickers, so definitely come check it out. Come join the fun, and we would love to see you there. And please join the fun back here again Monday for minute 11 of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade here on the Indiana Jones Minute.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't buy. Eric's theory was a great theory actually, but
it's magic.
Yeah, exactly. It's magic. I
It's a
guess
magic
you get in a
trick.
magic box.
It's a
You can
magic
go wherever
trick.
you want.
I don't.
Yeah,
It's
go
art is
wherever
meant
you
to be
want.
open-ended.
It's fine.
What if he sawed himself in half and like his legs just ran down the tracks?
I'm gonna go to a magic show with Jerry now, and I want to see him. Yeah,
It's like baloney.
I just want to know if you get in the box, then
Lazy.
are you just outside the building? Yeah.
nope,
That guy's still
no
alive.
way. Nope.
That guy's still alive.
I want my money back.